Hi, my name is Scott Mendes, and I'm with Cowboys for Christ, and I'm here today at the 102nd Ft.Worth Fat Stock Show and Rodeo. And today we are blessed to have some special guests with us and friends. And right now I'd like to talk with Jeff CopenHaver, who is the founder and the president of the New Frontier Cowboy Church. Yeah. Hey, could you explain a little bit about that for me?
Well, we started the first cowboy church in Billy Bob's, Texas in 1986. We just had our 12th anniversary, and it was make a long story short, in the first national finals at Vegas. In 1985, I was preaching out there. A man met with me afterwards. He says, "Boy," he says, "this is great." He said, "Could you come to Billy Bob's and have cowboy church in the bull riding arena?" Well, that sounds cool. And during the Ft.Worth Rodeo. And so we had 3 Sundays. We had Bruce Ford, I remember, spoke at one, and I can't remember, Susie Luxinger was at another one. And it just went great. But afterwards, the man that was the manager there, he said, "Do you want to have a church? You want to just start church here?" I said, and to ask a rodeo cowboy if you're going to start to be a pastor and have church, I mean, that was pretty wild. But anyway, we did. And we've been going ever since. And now, that was the first cowboy church. And then there's a cowboy church in Calgary at Fieldone. A friend of mine's up there. Joanne Cash's, or Johnny Cash's sister Joanne, her and her husband started Cowboy Church in Nashville, Tennessee. And now they're all, 12 years later, they're all over the country. There's probably 40 of them in Texas.
Praise God. What a great movement. Do you feel like that God's actually really pouring out His Spirit to the cowboy world? I know I have a personal ministry, and so do all of us. And I feel like God is really ministering and working with the cowboys. How do you feel to be a part of that?
Well, that's right, Scott. But I tell you, I think it was Smith Wigglesworth, a man, and I'm sure you've heard of him years ago. He was one of the mightiest Christians of all time. There was 26 people that he prayed for. Now, this might be hard for some people to believe, that were raised from the dead in this man's ministry. He was a tremendous Christian, and right before he died, he prophesied to a man named David Duplessis that in the very end times, one of the 3 groups of people that will take the gospel to the world would be the rodeo cowboys. And not only is God reaching out to cowboys and to the Western world people, but He's using cowboys, which is kind of the ridiculous, right? And in a lot of ways, who thought that cowboys would be going around the world and preaching? But it's happening.
Praise God. Yes, I'm familiar with that prophecy that Smith Wigglesworth explained to us. And it's really neat because at that time, he didn't know that much about the rodeo cowboy. And for that time, that era to actually be here right now is exciting. Right. Exciting to be serving God. Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do at your new church.
Well, we had a dream 4 years ago to build a log church in south of Granbury, between Granbury and Glen Rose. They're made out of big fir logs that came from the state of Washington. And God just, I don't know how else to say it other than God just helped us build this church. And it's down there now. And it's really I guess you'd say a mother, kind of like a mother church for all the other cowboy churches we're starting around. I just talked to a man tonight. We're going to back to the second time to Australia to start some cowboy churches in Australia, which will be the first one started in Australia. So I just believe in a few years, good chance that God could have cowboy churches all over the world, literally.
Jeff, maybe explain to us a little bit about how you came into a personal relationship with Christ, and then secondly, how did it affect your performance in the arena?
Well, my dad was a world's champion saddle bronc rider, 2 times world's champion saddle bronc rider, so I was raised in a rodeo family, but he wasn't a Christian at the time. And when I was growing up, I just kind of had the feeling that, well, man, if I could be a world's champion like my dad, you know, I'd be happy and cool and all that kind of stuff. But in 1975, which was 20 years after my dad won the world's championship in the saddle bronc riding, I won the calf roping. And, you know, I went back to my room that night, sat on the edge of my bed in the Holiday Inn in Oklahoma City, and I just kind of sat there and I said, you know, is that all there is? Is that how come I, you know, got on airplanes and jumped on helicopters and roped 100 head of calves a day one time for 100 days, 10,000 calves, and beat myself up? But you know what it was? It's nice to accomplish something. Just like, it's great that you accomplished, winning the bull riding championship. But if God isn't in your life, there's such a void that you're just kind of sitting there like, well, what was the point? And I started looking without knowing it. I started looking for the Lord. And I found the lady I'm married to now. I've been married to for 20 years. I met her at the Calgary Stampede in 1977. And she had been married to a real wealthy guy. And she'd had all the money in the world, and she thought money was going to make her happy. Well, she had just went through a divorce, and her and I both were looking for something more than what we'd found. And finally, God's got such a sense of humor. Here comes a calf roper, a Christian calf roper from Connecticut, and shared with Sherry and I. But I had known this man, and I could see in his eyes that there was such a change. Before he'd been like me, just driving, kind of that kind of a guy. But I see all of a sudden there was a joy and a peace in his life, and I'm just kind of looking in his eyes like, is this the same guy? Well, it really wasn't. And anyway, he told Sherry and I about Jesus. And just how real Jesus is when you ask him into your heart. Sherry and I went upstairs that day, knelt down at the foot of our bed. We asked Jesus to come into our heart. And that was 20 years ago this summer. And I tell you, it's been great ever since, and after that, we began to pastor, and the Lord began to use us, but it never seems to get past the simple point of the peace and joy that comes into your heart when you ask him in.
Yeah, praise God. Recently winning the world myself, I did the same thing. Before I knew Christ, I would have thought that the buckle would mean a lot more to me, and I would be like other people trying to fill that void with the money, the prestigious, the gold buckle itself. But it is an empty feeling, brother. And I tell you, I'm just like you, because as soon as I found Christ in my life, that's the day that I came a world's champion in God's eyes. Not last year when I won the bull riding, or when you won the calf roping, but when we accepted Christ.
That's right.
And that's, I think, what each of us try to reach out to in both of our ministries and Cowboys for Christ. Thank you very much.